we drift through the endless darkness of space. In a place untouched even by starlight, our trajectory was slowly scattering into the unknown. We were passing through a micrometeorite field on our way to the planet Altair 9, but the meteor swarm was denser than expected, and the collisions severely damaged the spaceship's hull and major systems. Even though the ship's central AI, Mother, immediately activated defense protocols, the impacts caused fatal damage to the engine modules and communication arrays. Just before the communication array fell completely silent, Mother successfully transmitted a distress signal into the interstellar network. Moments later, the rescue team left one final reply: "We will arrive within a year," and then disappeared. However, the damaged engines continued releasing unpredictable bursts of microthrust, slowly pushing us away from the coordinates where we had sent the distress signal. Even now, the spaceship continued drifting aimlessly through space. According to Mother's calculations, long-range communications were completely dead, but the short-range network was still functioning. If the rescue team could get close enough to the coordinates of our last signal, there was still a chance communication could be restored. The passengers felt relieved by the news, but according to Mother's further analysis, there was an even more serious problem. The ship's remaining power was falling below critical levels. Exactly 1 year remained until the rescue team's arrival. To survive that long, Mother concluded that every system except those directly tied to survival would need to be shut down in stages. Among them, the oxygen recyclers and water circulation systems were the final lifelines of the ship and could never stop for even a moment. But to conserve power, all interior lighting and non-essential living modules would be sequentially shut down. Even the artificial gravity system was no exception, and we would soon have to endure long-term survival in zero gravity. But the truth was, we had already been surviving in minimum power mode for the past 9 months. And finally, today was the day the artificial gravity system would be completely shut down. From this moment on, the interior of the ship would become a place where the concept of floor no longer existed. And today, even the faint emergency light we had clung to until the very end was scheduled to go dark. First, the artificial gravity system quietly shut down. At that moment, the bodies of the people who had been standing on the floor slowly began to lift upward. The children cheered and spun around in sudden weightlessness, but the adults' faces were filled with anxiety and tension. Small tools and loosely fastened objects slowly floated into the air one by one. The spaceship soon transformed into a strange place where people and objects drifted together. And finally, when the ship's last light went out, the interior sank into complete darkness. Where the light disappeared, only breathing and the faint vibrations of metal remained. We had expected the countless stars outside the window to soften the darkness at least a little. Even with our eyes open, it felt as though we were wrapped inside a thick curtain of darkness where nothing could be seen. The space had lost all sense of vision to the point that we could not even detect who was right beside us. Once both light and gravity vanished, even the sense of time itself began to collapse. Time flowed painfully slowly, like an endlessly stretching rubber band. After only 3 days, people began desperately begging for even the smallest navigation light to be turned on. When a dim red light finally flickered on, dozens of people slowly gathered toward that faint glow. After such a long darkness, that tiny red light felt like the heartbeat of something pulling people toward it. Another year passed like that, yet not a single person responded to the distress signal. Now even the navigation light could no longer be maintained. A notice came that the remaining power would not even last a few more days. Even after a full year had passed, the endless darkness remained a fear no one could grow accustomed to. Then Mother, who had remained silent for so long, quietly spoke. Mother suggested turning on the lights one last time, so everyone could see the faces of their loved ones before death. Everyone agreed, and in an instant, power surged back through the entire ship. The sudden brightness blinded people, and for several minutes, they could not properly open their eyes. As their eyes slowly adjusted, the faces of the families they had longed for gradually came into view. With tears pouring down their faces, people embraced one another tightly after seeing each other again for the first time in a year. Even though they had shared the same space all along, they had spent that endless time unable to see one another's faces. But that brief moment of light demanded a terrible price. Still, they quietly accepted it, grateful to have seen their families one last time. And before long, the spaceship's final light slowly faded away like its last breath. In the complete darkness that returned once more, people held tightly onto the memory that they had seen each other's faces again.